Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today I'm Gittin daf Pei Vav. We're going to begin on Pei Vav Amud Aleph by the new Mishnah. Let's see the Masnisa. Shleisha Gittin Psulin. This is a relatively famous quote we see many times. There's 3 Gittin which are considered to be invalid only midrabanan, because v'im nises havlad kosher, that if based on this get she would decide to get remarried and have a child, that child is kosher. Obviously, it means that Mikar Hadin, this is a valid get. Now, why is that? Well, let's see the Mishnah first. Ksav, kasa b'ksav yadai. Let's say you have a get that was written b'ksav yadai. In other words, it was actually the husband's handwriting. Not that a sofer, which is the typical situation, wrote the get, but rather the husband himself. The ain olav edim, and there's no witnesses. So let's stop here for 1 second. Now let's look at Rashi. Haitana lav Reb Meir svirle. Our mission is not like Reb Meir. Do you remember Edi Chasima Karti that requires signatures? Because if there's no edim, then according to him it would be a problem altogether. The Reb Meir havlad mamzer, because according to him this would not be acceptable at all, even b'diavad. Lamanda Michael b'Gemara Reb Meir. The one, as we're going to see in the Gemara, says that perhaps it is like Reb Meir, that even if there's not 100 signatures, but who wrote the get? It was the husband. And if it could be verified that this is the husband's handwriting, then the din is, it's like 100 witnesses. Let's see the rest of this long Rashi. Not like Rabbi Masira Karti, that you all you need to do is have witnesses upon giving it over. The Hapolig Rebbe Lezer b'Seifa. We're going to see the Rebbe Lezer argues in the Seifa. So if he argues in the Seifa, so it's probable that the Reisha is not him. Otherwise, it would just have mentioned his name at the beginning. Since it's the husband's handwriting on the get, he wrote the get. Because of Anasan Karin Bay, we follow the din of the Kasav Anasan. Yahweh the lake Edi Masir if there's no witnesses. Nonetheless, Kasher Midaraisa, as is the Midaraisa, that's good. It's only din the Rabbanan. Me, that's possible. Me and Rabbanan Paslinhu, Dilma Asul Akshuri B'Ksav Sefer. The issue is, even though the husband's signature, husband's writing the get is Kimeh Edim, nonetheless, we're concerned that if we allow this, then a person who just instructs a sofer to write the get, that would also be viewed as acceptable, which of course the only reason why it's acceptable because it was the husband that wrote it. Hilkach lo tinase. That's why l'chatchil we don't want you to use this get. However, havad kosher. If she did get married, the child will be kosher. However, davka ksav yadai, as we said, it has to be the husband wrote it. Of a ksav sefer, if the sefer wrote it, the ein sham aid, and there's no witness, havlad mamzer. Since it needs the kasav means he writes it, and therefore that would be a chisara. So that's case number 1. So if he wrote the get with no signatures, however, or yeshul aveda, let's say there are signatures, there are witnesses rather, the ein bozman, but the time was not written on the get, in which Rashi reminds us, going back to Daf Yud Zayin, that this was a takan of the Rabbanan to add the time. There's 2 reasons, but Rashi only brings 1 because of Basachoso. That you may find out that your wife had znus, which would be a capital offense, but because you're concerned, so you would say, oh, here's the get, and you'll say that she was divorced before she had znus to free her from being punished. So yesh bo zman, let's say it is a time on the get, ve'ein bo el eid echad, but there's only 1 witness. Hare elu shleish gittin psulin v'im nises havlad kosher. So the Mishnah again repeats it that it's kosher. Says Rashi, what's the case of 1 witness? Pligi ba Gemara ikamadi emer aksav yadukoi. The Gemara says that possibly he is the one who wrote it, the husband. Nonetheless, we are telling us the chatchila lo, that even with 1 signator, 1 witness is still not good. Bereisha, which mentions no witnesses, Ashmi'in and they feel ain but aid, if there's no witness, im nisis avad kosher. So the Reish is a big chiddush that even though there's no one, it's kosher. But the seifa, if you will, the third case, is one witness is really not enough either. That it's not considered to be a l'chadchila situation. Some say it was actually the scribe who wrote it. So why is it kosher? The sefer havile b'makam eid sheni. The sefer is in lieu of the second witness. Okay, back in the Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer oimer afabi she'ena of edim, even if there's no witnesses, el shenasnu lo b'fnei edim, but it was given over in front of witnesses. Kosher. And Rashi says, ve'enu ksav yado. It's not the husband's ksav. Nonetheless, as long as there was an asina, it was given over in front of witnesses, that's enough. And you can collect from encumbered properties. He says many times, the whole element of signing the get is because of tikkun oilam. In order to be able to produce the Eidim Sira, they may not be around. But when it says v'kasav lo l'shma, he holds it's the writing, it's not the signing. Says the Gemara. V'suleika, for the Gemara, you're telling me that that's it? There's no other of the three cases? However, why don't we say, when it comes to the ha'ika get yashan? How about when it comes to get yashan? Okay, here we are. This is question 6. Amai lo tani bahadei hani get yashan. So as we mentioned already, a get yashan, which Rashi quotes over here, we said previously, im nises lo teitze. If she gets married based on a get yashan, an old get, she does not have to leave. So what's a get yashan? As we said, it doesn't mean it's like a 20-year-old document. It means that he wrote the get, and then he was misyachid with her. So, since he secluded himself with her after the get was written, that's considered to be a get yashan. And therefore, l'chatchila, you should not use that get anymore. Okay, so why don't we mention that case? So, hasam lo teitze. Over there, when it comes to a get yashan, lo teitze. She doesn't leave the marriage. Hacha teitze. Here, even though it says the child is kosher, we still say that she has to leave the marriage. There's actually machlokus. It doesn't mention anything about whether teitze or lo teitze. It just says the child is kosher. So there actually is an opinion that says that she could stay in the marriage. So then what's the chiluk? Mention get yashan. So hasam tinas l'chatchila hachidi avad. You said the difference is one is l'chatchila, one is b'diavad. Let's look at question 6. Umandi oimer the begimel halo teitze hasam lo teitze. Umandi oimer begimel halo nami lo teitze hasam tinase l'chatchila. She can get married l'chatchila based on this get. Okay. V'ha'ika get kareach. How about a bald get? Which also we saw recently that when it comes to a kohen, typically instead of writing a get pashut, they write a get makusher, and there has to be, by each fold, every tie, there's also should be a signature. If there's less signatures, it's considered like bald, because like someone's bald is missing hair. So too, this document is missing signatures. So hasam havlad mamzer hachavlad kosher. So no, over there we say that it's not a get b'chlal, and it's taka the child is going to be a mamzer in that situation. That's what we said over there, that it's like Rameir, since you deviated from the dinim of Gittin. According to the Rabbanan, says Rashi, because they don't hold the child as a mamzer. Again, over there, teitze, even according to the Rabbanan. Over here, lo teitze. Again, it was a machlokus, whether or not teitze in our Mishnah here. You're right. This could have been mentioned, but we're just mentioning typical Gittin. I get pashut. We don't need to mention the special type of a get called a get makusher. You're right. There are other situations in which the din is that a person should not use it. L'chatchila, b'diavad, it may work. Avaha'ika shol malchus. How when it comes to shol malchus, as we learned in Perka Zorek, that it's necessary for you to write the actual king or the government that you live in, and you can't deviate from that. If you wrote from a country that you're in a country that was once ruled by Britain, but now you're in the United States, so you can't write from the previous monarch in power. Hasam teitze hachalo teitze. Again, over there, it's mamish not good at all in teitze. Our case is lo teitze. Hanicha madiamer hacha lo teitze lo madiamer teitze ma'ilka meimar. So let's look in the parentheses. Hasam havlad mamzer. Hacha havlad kosher. Hanicha rameir el rabban ma'ilka meimar moikamut kirameir. Well, hasam havlad mamzer hacha havlad kosher. Okay, so that's why you don't really need the parentheses there. But the point is that over there, we said the child is a mamzer. Over here, the child is kosher. So therefore, we don't include this in our case of the three, because in that situation, the child is a mamzer, but here it's kosher. Minyana dereishul mutimai, minyana sevu mutimai. Why does it mention three? Three is not so hard for us to count to. Why does it mention the word three in the beginning and the end? We're going to see this a lot also in the beginning of Kedushin. Minyana dereishul mute hani de amron. So the ratios come to exclude the other ones which we mentioned: get yashin, get kareach, minyan the seifa, or mute, or maybe not get yashin, but get kareach as one shal malchus. Minyan the seifa imuti hadasanya. Maybe give him and say, the person brings a get from another country, nasnu law, and he gives it to her. He doesn't say the words yoytzev havlad mamzer bra meir. So what the Chachamim say you should do? Yetlena himena, take the get back. V'yachsevit nenela, and give it back to her, and say b'fon netav v'yetnenela b'fnei shnayim, and for the two v'yom b'fon netvon nachtam. Ksav b'ksav yada v'enol avedim. So the first case is the husband wrote the get, but there's no witnesses. Amarav ksav yadu sheninu. It says it was his signature. It was his writing. Ahaya. Which case are we talking? Elim Aresha. Are we talking about the first case where there's no witnesses? Pshita. Ksav yadu katani. It literally says those words in the Mishnah. It says Kasab ksav yadai. It's exactly what it says in the Mishnah. So obviously that's what it's talking about. He wrote it. Vel amatsiasa. Maybe it's talking about the middle case, which is that there was not written with Zman. So Har Yeshul of Adam. But it says that there were witnesses. Says Rashi, Shepasim Mishum Zman, Malik Sav Yado, Malik Sav Sefer, Har Yeshul of Adam. So who cares who wrote it? If you have witnesses, so who cares if the scribe wrote it? So it doesn't seem to be any chiddush, any purpose rather of mentioning that he wrote the get. The sofer wrote the get would be the same thing. The problem is that there's no zman on it. Ella aseifa. It must be talking about the last case, which is that there was one witness. Yesh bo zman ve'ein bo el eid echad. He wrote the zman, but there's only one witness. As we continue to pay vav umid beis. V'davka ksav yadai ve'eid. Which is mashma, the only way it works is because he wrote it, the husband, and there was one witness. Of a ksav sefer of aid lo. It's coming to tell you that even though he wrote it, one witness is not enough. With Shmuel Omer feel, even though the Reisha talks about there's no witnesses, it's coming to tell you that even if there's one witness, that doesn't help. Shmuel Omer feel ksav sefer of aid, even if the scribe wrote it, and there's one witness, Shahari Shaninu, we learned Ksav Sefer of Eid Kosher. We learned that Ksav Sefer, he wrote it with a signature, it's actually kosher. For Rav Midami, so Rav says, how do you compare it? Chasam Tinasel Chatchila. If you have the two signatures, then she can get married Chatchila. Hacha, over here, it's kosher. Says Rashi, Kleimer Ksav Sefer v'chasam Eid Echad Kosher. Says Rashi, Hasam over there, Chasam Sefer im ha'ed sheninu. The sofer wrote the get, but he also signed it together with one of the witnesses. So that's different than when there's just one witness. Shmuel Kasha, Ha b'safra de muvhak, Ha b'safra de lo muvhak. It depends on his level of expertise. Let's look in Rashi. Leis le de Rabbi Yirmiyah el ksav sefer v'lo chasam. Actually, we're talking about the scribe wrote the get and he did not sign it at all. Behind time the kashal chadchil. Why would we say it works? Is b'safra de muvhak, someone who's an expert. Ubaki b'teres Gittin v'lo yichtavenu. He wouldn't write the get el im shama b'pi habal unless he heard it from the husband himself. And since we're dealing with a ksoifer who is an expert, so you could actually tinas l'chadchil because she get married right away. Rabbi Yochanan, so Rabbi Yochanan said, Amar le Rabbi Elazar Hari Yeshul of Edim. It says there's witnesses. So Amar le a seifa. So it means on the seifa, namely there was one aid. Zimnin Oimer Rav Teitze. Regarding the cases of our Mishnah, sometimes we hear that Teitze, she has to leave the marriage. Zimnin Oimer Rav Lo Teitze. Sometimes we hear Lo Teitze, that it's not necessary for her to leave the marriage, which is going to be question TB25. TB25 asked the question, Nises b'shlosh Gittin psulin the masnisin im teitze. TB25. So what do you mean sometimes? Yeah, so on Tuesdays, or what was that referring to? So haketza yesh lo banim lo teitze. If she doesn't have any children from this new marriage, if she does have children, then lo teitze. Ein lo banim teitze. So the reason is because we don't want to be moitzi las mazeres on her children if she leaves. So it'll give the impression, if she does leave, that there's something wrong with the original get, and therefore her children are mamzer. So that's the difference. Meisif Rav Zuch. This is actually an important answer. He says, if there are children, lo teitze. Ein lo banim. If there are no children, it's a machlokas. Okay. Meisif Rav Zuch or Bartuvia. V'kulon shahoy behen safik kedushin o safik gerushin. Hari elu choltzos v'masiya v'amois. In all situations where there is a suffix of marriage or divorce, we say that when it comes to yibum, if the husband dies and they're childless, then the din is they should do chalitza. Now when it says v'kulon, Rashi says this is referring to the chamish esrei arayo shamar shapaitu sarasem and a chalitza. So in the event, let's say for example, if a man has two wives and that man dies childless, now if one of these women is an erva to this man's brother, and therefore obviously she cannot do yibum, so too the tzara, the co-wife, also will not do yibum. But when it comes to a suffix, we will do chalitza. So what does that mean if there's a suffix? Nimsa sarasa suffix she tzaras erva upatura suffix she no tzaras erva zukuk yavam. We're not sure, so we require chalitza because she may be zukuka. And we don't do yibum because in the case of suffix, maybe she's not zokuk, and therefore she cannot marry her brother's. You can't marry your brother's wife if it's shlo b'makom mitzvah. It's only b'makom mitzvah. So in the case of suffix, we don't do so. So ketzat suffix kedushin. What is the case of suffix kedushin? Zarkla kedushin. He threw her money. Suffix karvlo. We don't know if it's close to him or to her. Zeo suffix kedushin. Suffix gerushin kasab iksav yadai. This is why we're bringing this down. The husband wrote the get. Ve'en lo edim. There's no witnesses. Or yeshul ve'en lo zman. Ve'en bo zman. There's no time on it. Yesh bo zman ve'en bo ela edacha. Now those are three cases. Harizeh suffix gerushin. These are considered to be cases of suffix gerushin. Now ve'iyam lo teitze. If you want to tell me that she should not leave the original marriage based on these cases, so tzarasa asali yavume. so then the tzara is going to end up doing yibum. In other words, they'll think it's a get. If lo teitze, they'll think that the first marriage was actually a get. That's the reason why she's allowed to stay in this relationship. And then subsequently, her husband dies. She had a tough life, right? She got divorced based on one of these three things. She married a second guy. We're saying lo teitze. If lo teitze, then everyone's going to think, obviously, because the original get was a good get. And therefore, if her husband dies, then it's really, there would be a din of hibum or chalitza. And therefore, in that situation, we say, oh, the tzara, this co-wife, since you're the ereva, the tzara, the co-wife, doesn't have to do yibum. However, they'll think it's a get, and she gets remarried. People will think it was a get, and they'll end up doing yibum with the tzara. Rand says, okay, if they do yibum, okay, it's achshash midrabanan, which obviously we'd like to prevent. But if they do yibum, they do yibum, okay, because again, really, it is a get, and therefore, if it really is a get, so she's really married to the second guy. Okay, Levi Omer Oyom Lo Teitze. No, really, she cannot leave the marriage. V'chein Omer Rav Yochanan Oyom Lo Teitze. V'chein Omer Rav Yochanan Libnei Rav Chalafda Demin Huna Hachi Omer Avuchoyin Lo Oyom Lo Teitze. She does not leave the marriage in these cases. The kartsis she be'amir, and the insect which is found in bundles, eno poselas b'mechatas, will not passel the mechatas. Seems to be slightly off topic, but this is another thing regarding the mechatas that was mentioned, that if you find an insect there, it's not going to cause any problems. My kartsis. Rabbi did bita debeni kipei. If you find a fly between the wool. Okay. Me'esav Rav Daniel Barav Katina Kol Ha'ifos Poislin B'mechatos. All birds can passel the mechatos. Chutz min hayoyin, except for a dove, mipnei shemoitzetzes, because it sucks it all in. Okay. V'im isa nisni chutz miyoyin v'kartzis. So shouldn't it also include the kartzis? V'psikale, it's not an absolute situation, which is why it does not mention the kartzis. The gedoyel apostle, katana apostle. It's a distinction between if it's big or small. V'yad kama. Ad kama says it's considered to be small as apostles. The mechatos have yirmitem rav ami ad kazayas. Once it reaches the size of a kazayas or above, that's considered to be gedoyla, and it will not passel. Okay. Abelezer omer afal pi v'chul. Rav Huna Rav halacha Rabelezer begittin. The halacha is like Rabelezer when it comes to gittin in this regard, that he says even if there is no witnesses, but it was given over in front of witnesses, that is good enough. Kiyam Risa Kamei Shmuel Af B'Shtaros. The halacha is like him, not just when it comes to gittin about giving it in front of witnesses, but even when it comes to shtar shtaros. But Rav Savar B'Shtaros lo. He holds when it comes to shtaros l'chora not. I'm Katani v'govim nechas mishubadim. So if he says nechas mishubadim, that's nothing to do l'chora with a get. A get has no monetary halachic status. Rabbi Lezer Tarti Yomer. He actually said two different things. Rav Savar Kavasa Bechada Pagla Bechada. He agrees over there and getting him not by shtar stars. Lechenam Rav Yachim Bar Yidi Rav Yeshua ben Levi Halach Rabbi Lezer getting. Rav Yani Rav Afilu Reach Haget Ein Boy. Even a Reach Haget, which we hear by a get Yoshan, that we don't have. Says Rashi, it doesn't have a smell of a get. We pasal b'kahuna l'hachmer v'kol shekain l'hater. Rav Yana lays later Rabbi Elazar. So let's say Rav Yana is on hold of Rabbi Elazar. What exactly is he saying? Hachikamer or Rabbanan. He's saying according to the Rabbanan who argue, afil recha get ein boy. B'cheinam Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina Omer Shlach Shlach Rabbi Lezer Begittin Rabbi Yochanan Rafil Rech Haget Ein Bo Leim Rabbi Yochanan Leisel Rabbi Lezer. So again, Hakakim Rabbanan, according to the opinion of the Rabbanan who argue with him, if we Rech Haget Ein Bo Shalach Rav Abba Bar Zavda Lamari was sent to Mori Bar Mar. Boy mi name Rav Huna Halach Rabbi Lezer Begittin Ein Halacha. There's a halacha like him or not. So ad hachi. In the meanwhile, Nach Nafshi the Rav Huna, tragically he died. Or Malay Rabba Berei, so Rab his son said, Hachi Amar Abba Mishmei, this is what my father said in the name of the Rabba, Halacha Kerbelezer Begittin. So even though, so his son was able to clarify. Rabbi Seinu Habikim B'Davar Halacha, and the Rabbi Seinu were experts in Halacha, says Rashi. Hanach the Mafarish V'Azal Rab, it's going to end up being Rav Chama Bar Guria, we'll see. Mishum Rabbeinu Amar Halacha B'Lezer Begin. Yom Rav Chama Bar Guria Amar Rav. That's who we're talking about. Halacha B'Lezer Begin. Ikad Yam some say V'Chavireinu Habikim B'Davar Halacha V'Talmidei Rabbeinu. And the students said Mishum Rabbeinu, the name of Rabbeinu. Amar Halacha B'Lezer Begin. Yom Rav Chisda Amar Rav Chama Bar Guria Amar Rav Halacha B'Lezer Begin. V'Cheina Rav Asa Amar Rav B'Lezer Amar Rav Halacha B'Lezer Begin. So we really want to make sure that we know what we're talking about when it comes to Gittin, so much so that we have over and over all of this discussion. Let's see if there's any more questions. Adkan.